On October 4, the U.S. Gerald R. Ford, America's newest aircraft carrier, made its first deployment amid escalating tensions in the Pacific and a lack of clarity over the role that these seagoing behemoths may play in future conflicts. The largest and most costly warship ever built is the $13.3 billion Ford. With its expansive 5-acre flight deck and cutting-edge electronics, it will likely remain the most powerful ship in the world far past 2050. The ship has 4 fighter squadrons and a plethora of support and tactical aircraft on board, totaling more than 60 aircraft. However, it has room for up to 90. Its air power is greater than that of at least 60 countries, and it is home to more stealth planes than the whole Russian military. Ford weighs 97,000 tons and is more than 9 floors above the ocean. That makes them 32,000 tons heavier than the biggest World War II battleships. But size does not equate to speed. According to the Navy, the ship has around 300 megawatts of total electrical capacity, which is nearly 3 times as much as America's current supercarriers. It is powered by a pair of cutting-edge A-1B nuclear reactors. It is comparable to witnessing a New York City block pass by at 34 miles per hour when seen from the water. Ford and the entire Pacific Fleet of the Navy are in danger of becoming outdated due to new anti-ship missiles from China, some of which are capable of operating at hypersonic speeds over Mach 5. These new missiles can destroy the most cutting-edge ships now cruising the oceans, much like how Japan used attack plane squadrons, an emerging technology in World War II, to sink the most lethal American and British battleships. In a sobering report updated in August 2022, the Congressional Research Service raises concerns about the survivability of Navy surface ships in potential combat situations against adversaries, such as China, that are armed with large numbers of UAVs and anti-ship missiles, including advanced models. Russia also has hypersonic weapons, but China concerns the Navy the most. Over the past 10 years, the nation has aggressively increased the size of its naval force and created several anti-ship weaponry, including highly agile hypersonic missiles with a top speed of Mach 10. The fact that China possesses full-scale replicas of American aircraft carriers that it employs for target practice at one of its weapons testing facilities in the Taklamakan Desert shows that it is not trying to hide the fact that such weapons are meant to fend off American ships. China's expansion occurs at a risky time for the region. The nation asserts control over a large portion of the South China Sea that extends thousands of kilometers from its coastlines. These territorial boundaries are hotly contested. Under international law, claims may only be made 12 nautical miles offshore. According to Jason Lyons, a retired Marine and former CIA officer, America's partners in the region depend on our naval presence to ensure open commerce channels. Because neither of the fighters operated on U.S. flat-tops, the F/A-18 Super Hornet and F-35C Joint Strike Fighter can reliably defend themselves or mount a counterattack. The Pacific Fleet is now within range of China's anti-ship missiles and drones. That affects more than just the American Navy. It's a crisis of existence. Ford and ships like it have a battery of anti-missile defenses, but none of them can shield it from China's most recent weaponry for an extended period. The Navy is investing heavily in a new technology that has been out of reach for decades, the laser, to preserve dominance in the Pacific or perhaps just to keep its ships afloat. The advantages are alluring. Lasers can withstand drone swarms because they can reload quickly and don't need ammunition stores, and they can fire at the speed of light, negating the effectiveness of hypersonic weapons. They are also powered by a large fuel source. Ford's massive nuclear reactors fit the bill. The DF-26 has a range that is considerably greater and is higher than 4 floors. But the DF-ZZF hypersonic missile, which can purportedly strike targets more than 1,500 miles distant and travel at speeds of Mach 10, is the most terrifying. The ZF maintains a high degree of maneuverability when it re-enters the atmosphere and flies toward a target, in contrast to the other 2 weapons, which fly in a typical arc that renders them more vulnerable to intercept. Even defeating the Navy's greatest defenses is difficult when dealing with a slow-moving missile. Retired Navy Master Chief Don Garcia, a weapons specialist who worked on destroyers and cruisers, believes intercepting missiles in flight is one of the most challenging fire control issues that exists. With current defenses, the DFZF would be nearly impossible to stop because of its speed and unpredictable course. There are other dangers besides China's hypersonic weapons. Commanders of carriers have long been aware of their susceptibility to anti-ship cruise missile batteries. The weapons can be used in such large quantities that they overpower a ship's defenses. Swarms of reasonably priced, long-range suicide drones may just as quickly disable a carrier group. History informs the Navy's worries about Chinese anti-ship weapons. 3 days after the Japanese destroyed Pearl Harbor, on December 10, 1941, the British sent a small but mighty fleet of warships in the direction of the Malay Peninsula. 2 enormous battleships and 4 destroyers made up the 4C fleet. The First World War veteran HMS Repulse underwent substantial renovations in the 1930s. 1 year earlier, the 50,000-ton German battleship Bismarck was sunk thanks in large part to the leadership of the group's more modern and newer ship, which had already garnered praise for its accomplishments. The command of the Royal Navy was aware of the potential influence that air power could have on maritime combat, but they overestimated how damaging it could be. According to reports, the commander of 4C, Admiral Thomas Phillips, declined to coordinate covert operations with the Royal Air Force. At 11:18 a.m., Japanese bombers began to appear over the horizon, signaling his error. To avoid the torpedoes that Japanese bombers dropped into the ocean, all 4 destroyers and both battleships opened fire with armaments ranging from 40mm autocannons to 3-inch anti-aircraft guns. William Tennant, the captain of the Repulse, reported avoiding 19 of them the first hour. Sadly, the new warship had less luck. Prince of Wales listed to port after sustaining a direct strike. Soon 2 more torpedoes pierced its hull, and then a third landed on Repulse's port side. Battleships were regarded as the biggest and most potent ships on the high seas, much like carriers are now. Repulse was the first significant battleship ever to be sunk by aircraft that fateful morning. Prince of Wales became the second only moments later. Both ships had disappeared beneath the water at 1:20 p.m. The Navy's situation becomes obvious when drones and high-speed missiles are used instead of airplanes. Its greatest carriers and most powerful destroyers are ill-prepared to repel waves of invaders coming down from the sky. The U.S. Gerald R. Ford currently travels with a carrier strike group, which is an armada of 10 or more cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and occasionally 1 or 2 submarines. At least 2 of those ships, often guided missile destroyers of the Arleigh class, are air defense specialists. Using potent onboard radars to find targets more than 200 miles away, these ships offer the first line of defense against enemy attacks. The Navy's full-length CIWS, close-in weapon system, which controls radar-controlled 20mm 6-barrel Gatling guns that fire 4,500 rounds per minute, and surface-to-air missiles are both equipped on board the ships. They resemble the huge cannons that American fighter jets like the F-16 fire nearly exactly. A carrier strike group has the equipment necessary to intercept scores of approaching missiles up to 200 miles away. However, it loses its ability to defend itself as soon as the ship's supply of interceptors, which must be stored and then replenished after the combat, runs low. While missiles must be restocked at a port, other munitions can be renewed at sea. This is referred to by the Pentagon as a depth of magazine issue, which adversaries might take advantage of with swarming strikes. The Pentagon thinks that photons generated by incredibly agitated atoms are the strongest defense against swarming drones. If you excite atoms, ions, or molecules with enough voltage, they will generate light. Then, confine the light between mirrors so that it bounces back and forth, further igniting those microscopic particles. You can create a laser by focusing the light's amplification into a focused beam and directing it at a target at the speed of light. Laser beams do not detonate upon impact like Star Wars blasters do. Instead, they produce a lot of heat. Lasers' lower power output can fool a drone's optical sensors. If the power is increased, a laser will pierce it. In essence, lasers convert energy into ammunition. They can potentially fire thousands or perhaps tens of thousands of times at incoming projectiles because they are powered by nuclear reactors similar to the ones on Ford. Lasers can also track and target erratic weapons, like China's hypersonic DFZ better than conventional missiles, since they move at the speed of light. Gunners won't need to lead a target and estimate its location like they do now because of this. So this is the end of our today's video. Do you like it? Kindly give your valuable response in our comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting and informative videos.